Blood trickled between my fingers as I pressed the towel against the cut on my forehead. My vision was blurred, tears mingling with the blood, making it impossible to distinguish one from the other. The Constantine mansion's kitchen seemed to spin around me, the copper pots hanging on the walls dancing like distorted shadows under the fluorescent light. I shouldn't be here, not at this hour of the night, not alone. But sleep had abandoned me hours ago, and hunger, that persistent hunger that comes from working 14 hours straight, cleaning the 3 floors of this fortress, had brought me here. That's when I tripped over the laundry basket someone had left in the middle of the hallway. The fall was quick, brutal. My head hit the corner of the marble countertop with a sound that echoed through the empty kitchen like a gunshot. Now, alone in the dark, with blood staining the spotless white uniform I had just washed, I could only think of one thing. If Dmitri Constantine found me like this, bleeding in his kitchen at 3 a.m., I would be fired before dawn, and I couldn't afford to lose this job. Not with my sister depending on me. Not with the debt suffocating us like a shroud. The sound of heavy footsteps echoed down the marble hallway. Icy panic washed over me. I dropped the towel and tried to stand, but my legs gave way. Dizziness knocked me back to the floor. The kitchen door burst open with a bang that made my heart race. What the hell? Dmitri Constantine's voice cut through the darkness like a blade. Deep, rough, laden with that Russian accent that intensified when he was angry. I heard the click of the light switch. Light flooded the kitchen, making my eyes shudder. When I could focus, he was there, standing in the doorway like a figure from a nightmare, tall, with broad shoulders that filled the doorway, dark hair disheveled as if he had just woken up. But it was his eyes that paralyzed me, storm gray, cold as Siberian steel, fixed on me with an intensity that chilled my blood. Miss Volkov, it wasn't a question. Dmitri knew every person who worked in his house. His memory was legendary, as was his cruelty. I'm sorry, Mr. Constantine, I stammered, trying to stand up again. I'll clean everything up. You're bleeding. He crossed the distance between us in 3 long strides. Before I could protest, he was kneeling beside me, his fingers firmly but not brutally gripping my chin, turning my face toward the light. The cut is deep. You need stitches. I'm fine, I lied, feeling more blood trickle down my temple. I just need a bandage. You'll faint if you lose any more blood. His voice clung to no argument. How did this happen? I told him about the basket, about the fall, about my stupidity in walking in the dark. As I spoke, he picked up a clean towel, pressing it against my cut with surprising gentleness for such large hands. Who left the basket in the hallway? He asked, and something in his voice made me shudder. It wasn't anger exactly. It was something colder, more dangerous. I don't know, I admitted. It was dark. Someone left a trap for you. It wasn't a question. His gaze had darkened, those gray eyes now looking almost black. Or a message. A message? Confusion enveloped me, mingling with dizziness. Mr. Constantine, I don't understand. Quiet. He slipped his arm under my legs, and before I could protest, lifted me off the ground as if I weighed nothing. My world spun violently. What are you doing? Taking you to the hospital. No. Panic made me forget who I was talking to. Please, I don't have insurance. I can't pay. You work for me. I pay. His answer was simple, definitive. He started walking, carrying me out of the kitchen, through corridors I cleaned every day, but which now seemed strange, distorted by the pain and shock of being in Dmitri Constantine's arms. The whole city will talk, I murmured, feeling my consciousness begin to slip. When they see the Bratva boss taking his maid to the hospital in the middle of the night, let them talk. His voice was as cold as ever, but his arms tightened a little more. By tomorrow, the whole city will know you're not just my maid. His words were the last thing I heard before darkness swallowed me completely. The Constantine mansion stood atop the hill like a monument to wealth and power. Dark gray stone, arched windows, towers that seemed to touch the cloudy Moscow sky. It was the kind of place where horror stories began, where secrets were kept, and where people like me didn't belong. But I needed this job, desperately. Anastasia Volkov? The voice came from a middle-aged woman, gray hair pulled back in a severe bun, brown eyes inspecting me from head to toe with clear disapproval. Yes, ma'am. I maintained my upright posture, despite the weariness weighing on my shoulders. 2 hours by bus to get here, after working my night shift in the warehouse. Mrs. Ivanova, I assumed. Head housekeeper, she corrected, opening the heavy door to let me in. "You arrived early." "That's good. Mr. Constantine values punctuality." I entered an entrance hall that seemed larger than the entire apartment I shared with my sister. Black and white marble formed hypnotic patterns on the floor. A crystal chandelier hung from the high ceiling, projecting prisms of light onto the walls. A double staircase curved to the second floor, the polished mahogany railings gleaming under the soft lighting. "The mansion has 47 rooms," Mrs. Ivanova began, her voice echoing in the vast space. "You will be responsible for the first and second floors. The third floor consists of Mr. Constantine's private quarters and is off-limits unless specifically instructed otherwise." I nodded, making mental notes as she led me through a maze of corridors. "You will work from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., 6 days a week. Sundays off. Payment is deposited fortnightly. Uniforms are provided and must be impeccable at all times." Her critical gaze swept over my simple black dress and worn shoes. "I understand you need this job, Ms. Volkov." It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. "Yes, ma'am." "Then let me be clear." She paused, turning to face me fully. "Mr. Constantine is not an ordinary man. He values efficiency, discretion, and absolute loyalty. You will see things in this house. You will hear things. Nothing you see or hear leaves these walls. Understood?" I swallowed hard, perfectly understanding what she wasn't saying. Everyone in Moscow knew who Dmitry Constantine was. At 36, he commanded the city's most powerful bratva, a criminal network that controlled everything from casinos to construction, from arms imports to nightclubs. His name was whispered with reverence and terror in equal measure. "Understood," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "Great." Ms. Ivanova resumed walking. "One last thing. Mr. Constantine rarely interacts directly with the domestic staff. If you cross paths with him, lower your eyes and get out of his way. Never speak to him unless he speaks first. Never question him. And above all, never bother him." The list of nevers was so long that I wondered how anyone could work here without violating at least one of those rules. But I nodded again, because I had no choice. My sister Katya needed medical treatment, expensive treatment that our overburdened public health system couldn't provide. This job paid 3 times more than anything I'd ever gotten before. So I'd accept the rules, keep my head down, and do my job. Simple as that. Or so I thought. 2 weeks passed in a blur of scrubbing, polishing, and cleaning chemicals that left my hands red and cracked. The Constantine mansion was even more vast than I had imagined, each room more opulent than the last. Libraries lined with leather and mahogany, dining rooms with tables that could seat 30 people, a music room with a grand piano that probably cost more than a house. I worked quietly, usually alone, since Mrs. Ivanova preferred to keep the team separate. She said it was more efficient. I suspected it was more about control, about ensuring we didn't form alliances or share too much about what we saw. And I saw things. Men in expensive suits coming and going at all hours, meetings behind closed doors, raised voices arguing in Russian and other languages I didn't recognize. Once, while cleaning the hallway near Dmitry's office, I heard a shout, followed by a muffled gunshot and silence. My heart raced, but I kept scrubbing, pretending not to have heard anything. Discretion. That was the golden rule, until the day the rules changed. I was cleaning the library on the second floor, a room that had quickly become my favorite. Walls crammed with books from floor to ceiling, a wooden ladder gliding on brass rails, enormous windows offering views of the meticulously manicured gardens. The afternoon light streamed in at golden angles, illuminating dust particles that danced in the air like tiny stars. I was so engrossed in cleaning the highest shelves, precariously balanced on the ladder, that I didn't hear the door open. "You're about to fall." The voice made me jump, and for a terrifying moment, the ladder swayed dangerously. Strong fingers gripped the side, stabilizing it. I looked down, and my heart stopped. Dmitry Constantine stood right below me, one hand holding the ladder, the other in the pocket of his perfectly tailored trousers. He wore a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up to his elbows, revealing muscular forearms marked with tattoos that I knew held significance in the Bratva hierarchy. His dark hair was slightly disheveled, as if he had run his fingers through it repeatedly, and his eyes, those piercing gray eyes, were fixed on me with an intensity that made my stomach churn. "I'm sorry, Mr. Constantine," I stammered, almost dropping the cleaning cloth in my haste to descend. I didn't know anyone was, clearly. A hint of what might have been amusement tinged his voice. "Otherwise, you wouldn't be climbing on furniture like a child." I descended the steps quickly, my face burning with humiliation. When I reached the floor, he didn't move away, trapping me between his body and the stairs. Up close, he was even more intimidating than from afar, tall enough that I had to tilt my head back to look at him. Broad shoulders that blocked the light, a face all hard angles, and a sharp jaw covered by carefully maintained stubble. A thin scar crossed his left eyebrow, a reminder of some past violence. "What's your name?" he asked, though I suspected he already knew the answer. Dmitri Konstantin knew everything that went on in his house. "Anastasia Volkov, sir." I kept my eyes down, remembering Mrs. Ivanova's rules. "Look at me when I speak to you, Anastasia." The use of my given name, instead of my surname, surprised me. Slowly, I raised my eyes. Up close, I could see things I had missed from afar, the way small lines formed at the corners of his eyes, the slight imperfection in his nose, as if it had been broken and healed slightly crooked, the way his lips were fuller than one would expect on such a hard face. "How long have you been working here?" 2 weeks, sir." "And do you like it?" The question was so unexpected that I hesitated, like it wasn't the word I would use. "The work is satisfying, sir," I replied carefully. Something like a smile touched his lips. "Diplomatic. That's good." He finally took a step back, giving me room to breathe. "Mrs. Ivanova says you are the most competent of the current team." Surprise washed over me. She said that? She doesn't give praise lightly. Dmitri moved to the window, his hands behind his back. "Your sister, Katya, how is her treatment going?" Ice ran through my veins. How did he know about Katya? Of course. Dmitri Konstantin didn't hire anyone without a thorough background check. "She's responding well to treatment, sir." "Thank you for asking. Leukemia is expensive to treat." It wasn't a question. "I'm managing," I replied, though we both knew it was only partially true. The salary I earned here helped, but it was still far from covering all the costs. "Perhaps we can make a deal." He turned, his eyes studying me with that unsettling intensity again. "A deal?" I repeated cautiously. "You need money. I need someone I can trust." He paused. "My personal assistant left abruptly last week. The position requires absolute discretion, unquestionable loyalty, and the ability to handle unusual situations." My heart began to beat faster. "Mr. Konstantin, I have no experience in executive assistance. You have something more valuable. Need." His voice was cold, calculating. "Desperate people are loyal, and I investigated you, Anastasia. You have no criminal ties, no debts beyond your sister's medical expenses, no history of indiscretion. You are perfect, perfect." The word sounded more like a sentence than a compliment. "What would that entail?" I asked slowly. "Managing my schedule, answering calls, accompanying me to meetings when necessary, acting as my companion at occasional social events." He paused. "Nothing physical will be required, if that's what you're worried about. Just your presence. Companionship." I understood what he wasn't saying. He wanted someone to be by his side, to make him seem more human, less of a monster, more of a man. "And the payment? Triple your current salary, plus all your sister's medical expenses covered. Full treatment, the best doctors, everything." It was too much, too good to be true. There was always a but. "What's the risk?" The question escaped before I could stop it. To my shock, Dmitri smiled. A real, genuine smile that transformed his face from intimidating to devastating. "Smart question. The risk is that association with him makes me a target. My enemies might try to use it against me. That's why you'll have constant security. You'll also have to move into the mansion. Private quarters in the East Wing. Living here. Being available 24 hours a day. Being part of Dmitri Konstantin's world in a way that went far beyond cleaning his floors." "I need time to think," I finally said. "You have until tomorrow morning." He moved toward the door, then stopped. "And Anastasia, regardless of your decision, your sister's medical expenses will be covered. Consider that a hiring bonus." Before I could answer, he was gone, leaving me in the silent library, my mind spinning with possibilities and dangers in equal measure. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed awake in the tiny apartment I shared with Katya, watching her sleep on the sofa that served as her bed. At 19, she looked much younger, her pale face framed by thinning blonde hair, courtesy of chemotherapy. Her breathing was shallow, occasionally interrupted by coughs that made my heart clench. She was getting better, the doctors said. But getting better was relative when you couldn't afford the best treatments, the experimental drugs that could make the difference between temporary remission and a complete cure. Dimitri's offer echoed in my mind. Enough money to save Katya. All I had to do was sell my soul to the devil. Except, he wasn't exactly what I expected. Yes, Dmitri Konstantin was dangerous. Yes, he ran a criminal empire. But in the library, for those brief moments, I had seen something more. Curiosity, respect, perhaps. And that smile, unexpected and genuine. In the morning, I made my choice. You're going to say yes. Katya was awake when I returned from the kitchen with tea. Her blue eyes, so similar to mine, studied me with a perception that surpassed her years. I don't know what you're talking about, I lied badly. Anna, I'm not stupid. She sat up, pulling the thin blanket around her shoulders. Something happened at work yesterday. You stayed up all night, and you only do that when you're making important decisions. I sighed, sitting down beside her. I told her everything. Dimitri's offer, the risks, the money. When I finished, Katya was staring at me with an expression I couldn't decipher. You have to accept, she finally said. Katya, Anna, listen. She took my hands in hers, so cold and fragile. You've sacrificed everything for me for years. Your dream job, your own apartment, your life. It's time for me to give back. If this man can pay for my treatment, if he can give you a better life, then you accept. It's dangerous. Living is dangerous. Dying of leukemia is dangerous. Her laugh was bitter. At least this way, one of us comes out ahead. Don't talk like that. Then accept the offer. Her hand squeezed mine. And promise you won't regret it. Promise you'll live, really live, even if it's terrifying. How could I refuse when she looked at me like that, with so much love and despair mixed together? 3 hours later, I was in Dimitri's office on the 3rd floor, a sanctuary I'd never seen before. It was as masculine and intimidating as its owner. Dark wood-paneled walls, a huge desk dominating the space, windows offering panoramic city views. Dmitri sat behind the desk, wearing a 3-piece suit that probably cost more than a car. He was on the phone, speaking in rapid, sharp Russian to someone who was clearly on the receiving end of his anger. When he saw me, he gestured for me to sit down, continuing his conversation for a few more minutes before hanging up. Your decision? He asked without preamble. I accept. The words came out firmer than I felt. On conditions. An eyebrow rose. Conditions? Katya stays in the apartment as long as she's well enough. When she needs more intensive care, she comes here. I need written assurance about her medical coverage, and I want the option to leave if the situation becomes unsustainable. Dmitri studied me for a long moment, his gray eyes impossible to read. Then, to my shock, he smiled. You negotiate well, Anastasia. Very well. He pulled a document from a drawer. I've already prepared the contract. Your conditions are included. Of course they were. Dmitri Konstantin was always 3 steps ahead. I spent the next hour reading every line, every clause. Everything was there. Salary, health insurance, confidentiality clauses, termination terms. It was more generous than I had any right to expect, and more binding than was comfortable. But it was fair. I signed with hands that trembled only slightly. Welcome to my life, Anastasia Volkov. Dmitri reached across the table. When I took it, his fingers closed around mine. Warm, firm, surprisingly gentle. By tomorrow, the whole city will know you're not just my maid. His words were prophetic in ways neither of us could have foreseen. The transformation was brutal and rapid. Within 48 hours, I had moved into the east wing of the mansion, my few belongings looking pathetic in the luxurious rooms that were now mine. A full suite with a bedroom, a private bathroom with a soaking tub that could accommodate 3 people, a walk-in closet larger than my old apartment, and a living room overlooking the gardens. Valentina, Dimitri's personal stylist, appeared the next morning with a team of assistants and racks of clothes. Mr. Konstantin says you need a proper wardrobe, she announced, her critical eyes assessing every inch of me, for public events, business meetings, and everyday use. Let's start with measurements. The following hours were a blur of measuring tapes, expensive fabrics, and Italian discussions about colors and cuts that were completely beyond my comprehension. When Valentina finally left, I promised that the first pieces would be ready by the end of the week. You'll look like a queen, she said with an approving smile, worthy of standing beside our Tsar. Tsar, that's what some called Dmitri, king of the Moscow underworld. The thought made me shudder. My real training began that afternoon. Ivan, a middle-aged man with a perpetually disapproving expression, was Dimitri's head of security. He led me through a crash course on security protocols, escape routes, people to avoid, and how to recognize threats. "You'll be with the boss in dangerous situations," he said bluntly. "You need to know how to protect yourself. Self-defense classes start tomorrow at 6 a.m. 6 a.m.? Do you think danger waits for convenient hours?" His gaze was piercing. "Be punctual." Then came Yevgeny, Dmitri's senior administrative assistant, who taught me the systems of the house, how to manage Dmitri's schedule, filter calls, prepare documents for meetings. "Mr. Konstantin is demanding," Yevgeny explained, pushing gold-rimmed glasses down his nose. "He expects you to anticipate his needs before he expresses them. You will learn his patterns, his preferences, his moods, and never, ever keep him waiting." The list of rules and expectations was overwhelming, but I survived the first day, and the second, and the third. Slowly I began to find my rhythm, and Dmitri was a constant enigma at the center of it all. He was demanding, yes, but not unfair, impatient, but willing to explain when I asked questions, cold in public, but occasionally showing glimpses of something warmer in private. Like the morning I arrived at his office with coffee and found him staring at a framed photograph on his desk. A young, beautiful woman, dark hair, a warm smile. "Your sister?" I asked before I could stop myself. He looked up, his expression immediately closing. "My mother. She was beautiful. She was." He put the photo back in its place. "She's dead too. My father killed her when I was 9. The revelation left me speechless. Dmitri, I don't need your pity, Anastasia." His voice was cold, but his eyes told a different story. "Just understand this. I became who I am to ensure I'll never again be powerless, that I'll never again see someone I love hurt without being able to do anything about it." The raw honesty hit me like a punch. This man, this feared criminal, had been shaped by the same thing that had shaped me, desperate love and fear of loss. "I understand," I said softly. "More than you can imagine." Our eyes met, and for a moment something passed between us. Recognition, understanding, a connection that went beyond employer and employee. Then the moment passed. Dmitri picked up his coffee, returning to the documents on his desk as if the conversation had never happened. But something had changed. I could feel it. Chapter 5. The first event. "Will you behave yourself?" Dmitri adjusted his tie in the hallway mirror, his expression unreadable. "Is that a rhetorical question?" I replied, smoothing the emerald green silk dress that Valentina had insisted was perfect for tonight's gala. His eyes moved to me through the mirror, scanning me from head to toe in a way that sent a heat down my spine. "You look beautiful." The words were simple, stated as fact, not a compliment. But even so, they made me blush. "Thank you. The predators tonight will notice." He turned, drawing closer until I could feel the heat emanating from him. "They'll ask questions, speculate about our relationship. Some will try to provoke me through you. And how should I respond? Politely, vaguely, and always with the awareness that every word you say will be analyzed." His finger traced the line of my jaw, a touch so light it could have been imagined. "But above all, stay close to me, never out of my sight." The gala ball was at the Grand Imperial Hotel, a restored palace that exuded old-world luxury. As we arrived, camera flashes exploded like miniature stars. Dmitri kept a steady hand on my lower back as we navigated the sea of reporters and curious onlookers. "Mr. Konstantin, who is your date?" "Dmitri, is it true that you are expanding into the European market?" "Mr. Konstantin, comment on the rumors of territorial war." He ignored them all, his expression as cold and impenetrable as ever, but his hand on my lower back was warm, protective. Inside, the ballroom teemed with Moscow's elite, oligarchs, politicians, celebrities, and other criminal bosses like Dmitri, all feigning civility beneath crystal chandeliers and classical music. Dmitri Mikhailovich, a middle-aged, burly, red-haired man, approached with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I thought you didn't attend these things. Special nights call for exceptions, Alexei." Dmitri's voice was polite, but cold. "This is Anastasia Volkov." Alexei's gaze swept over me in a way that made me want to take a shower. "Charming. Where did you find her, Dmitri? She's very refined for your usual social circle." The veiled insult did not go unnoticed. I felt Dmitri stiffen beside me. "Careful, Alexei. Insults to her are insults to me." The warning was gentle, but deadly. Alexei raised his hands in mock surrender. "No offense intended, just surprised. You've always been so particular about your companions." He leaned in, his breath reeking of vodka. "Tell me, darling, what does a man need to do to win the favors of Dmitri Konstantin?" Before I could answer, Dmitri stepped forward, placing himself between us. "Alexei, I suggest you leave. Now. Sensitive tonight, aren't you?" Alexei laughed, but stepped back. "Enjoy the party." As soon as he was out of earshot, I turned to Dmitri. Who was that? A rival. Someone who tests boundaries. His jaw was tense. Ignore him. He was trying to provoke you. And he failed. Dmitri took 2 glasses of champagne from a passing waiter, offering me one. "But you handled it well. You didn't retaliate. That's smart." The rest of the evening passed in a blur of introductions and superficial conversation. Dmitri kept me close, his hand a constant presence, on my lower back, holding my hand, occasionally brushing my hair from my shoulder in a gesture that felt more intimate than it probably should have. I played my part perfectly, smiling, nodding, offering brief answers when questioned. But I was exhausted when we finally left, mentally and physically drained from pretending to belong to a world so different from my own. "You did exceptionally well," Dmitri said on the way back. "Thank you." I looked out the window, watching Moscow go by. It was intense. "It'll get easier." A pause. "Or you'll get used to it. I'm not sure which." His honesty made me smile despite my weariness. "Dmitri? Yes? Why did you really choose me? There are 1,000 women in Moscow who know this world better than I do. Who would fit in perfectly?" Silence filled the car for a long moment. When Dmitri finally spoke, his voice was low, almost vulnerable. "Because you're real, Anastasia. Every other woman in that room tonight was playing a game, wearing a mask. But you can't pretend. You don't know how." He turned to me. "And in a world built on lies, your honesty is the most valuable thing I've found." Something changed in that moment. The line between professional and personal, already blurred, became almost invisible. And when we arrived at the mansion, when Dmitri leaned down to kiss my forehead goodnight, I knew with absolute certainty I was falling for the most dangerous man in Moscow, and there was nothing I could do to stop myself. Chapter 6. The Threat. The weeks turned into a month, and my life became unrecognizable. Days began with self-defense training with Ivan, who I found surprisingly patient when I wasn't completely out of sorts. Mornings were filled managing Dmitri's schedule, filtering calls, preparing meeting briefings. Afternoons often found me beside him in his office, watching as he conducted business with a brutal efficiency that was simultaneously terrifying and fascinating. And the nights. The nights were when the masks fell. When it was just the 2 of us in the library, or in his private office, Dmitri transformed. The coldness softened. He spoke of his mother, of how she had taught him to read using forbidden poetry books, of his younger brother who had died the same night as her, of how he had built his empire on the ashes of his shattered family, not out of greed, but out of sheer survival. And I shared my own stories, about Katya, about our parents who died in a car accident when I was 16, about how I raised my sister alone, sacrificing university and dreams to ensure she had a chance. "You're stronger than me," Dmitri said one night as we shared vodka in his office, the city spread out like a carpet of lights below us. "You built your life without spilling blood. Strength manifests itself in different ways," I replied softly. "You did what you needed to do to survive. Just like me." His eyes met mine over the rim of the glass. "You don't judge me. I'm not in a position to judge anyone. Anastasia," he set the glass aside, moving closer. "Do you realize what's happening between us?" My heart raced. "Dmitri, I promised that nothing physical would be required, and I keep my promises." His hand rose, fingers tracing my cheek with a tenderness that surprised me. "But I can no longer pretend that you're just my assistant, that I don't think about you every moment, that I don't want—" The office door burst open violently. Ivan stood in the doorway, his face pale, an expression I had never seen before. Pure terror. "What?" Dmitri's voice was icy. The intimate moment instantly shattered. "Sir, we have a situation. It concerns Ms. Volkov, your sister." My blood ran cold. "Katya? What happened to Katya?" "She was taken away. From the hospital. Half an hour ago." The world tilted beneath my feet. I felt Dmitri's arms catching me before I could fall. "Who?" Dmitri's word was a deadly growl. "Alexei Volkov, sir. He left a message." Ivan handed over a phone. Dmitri read, his expression growing darker with each passing second. When he spoke, his voice was so cold it could freeze blood. Gather everyone. Now. We have a war to begin. Chapter 7. The Revelation. The operations room in the mansion's basement was something out of a spy movie. Screens covering the walls. Computers flashing. City maps marked with points of interest. A dozen of Dimitri's men were already there, all heavily armed, all wearing that expression of restrained violence that I had learned to recognize. Status, Dimitri whispered as soon as we entered. Hospital cameras captured 3 men entering through the emergency gate at 9:47 p.m., reported a young man with a laptop. They disabled security, eliminated 2 guards, both alive, just unconscious, and took patient Ekaterina Volkov from her room. They left at 9:52 p.m. Black van, no license plates. Track the van, Dimitri ordered. We already did it. We lost her in Tverskaya, but he clicked a few keys. Alexei isn't hiding. He sent coordinates. A location flashed on the screen. A warehouse in the industrial district, neutral territory between the various Bratva factions. It's a trap, Ivan said immediately. Obviously. Dimitri studied the map, his eyes calculating angles and possibilities. But he has something I want, so let's play his game. Dimitri, no. I found my voice despite the terror choking me. He wants you. This is about you, not Katya. She's just bait. He turned, his hands framing my face. Anastasia, listen to me. I will bring your sister back, alive and whole. I promise you that. At the cost of his own life, if necessary. No. The word came out as a scream. No, you can't. Dimitri, I can't lose you too. Something flashed before his eyes. Surprise, perhaps. Or recognition. You care. It wasn't a question. Of course I care, you idiot. Tears burned in my eyes. Do you think I could spend every day by your side? Learn who you really are and not care? Anastasia, I love you. The words came out. Unexpected and true. I know it's crazy. I know it's stupid. But I love you. And I won't let you die for me. Silence fell over the room. Each man looked anywhere but at us. Then Dimitri smiled. That rare, genuine smile that transformed his face. Then it's a great time for me to tell you that I love you too. I've loved you ever since I saw you on those stairs, defying gravity and common sense. He kissed me then, in front of all his men. A kiss that was both fierce and tender, a promise and a declaration. When we parted ways, his eyes were serious again. That's why I'm bringing your sister back. Because you deserve to have your whole family. And because I'm going to spend the rest of my life making you happy. We're going to bring her back, I corrected. Together. Anastasia, no. You said I'm your partner, that I'm not just your maid. So let me be your real partner. I lifted my chin, channeling all the strength I had built up over the years taking care of Katya. Besides, Ivan taught me how to shoot. I'm not useless. Ivan coughed, which might have been a stifled laugh. She's not terrible, sir. Dimitri looked at me for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he nodded. Very well. But you stay with me the whole time. No heroics. Understood? Understood. Then let's go get your sister. Chapter 8. The Confrontation. The warehouse sat on the banks of the Moscow River, a decaying structure surrounded by rusty cranes and abandoned containers. Mist swirled from the river, turning the world into shades of gray and shadow. It was the kind of place where bodies were left, where dirty business was conducted away from prying eyes. We arrived in 3 vehicles, all armored, all prepared for war. Dimitri kept me by his side as we approached, his hand never far from the gun at his waist. The warehouse doors were open, dim light filtering into the night. Dmitri Mikhailovich! Alexei's voice echoed from inside. Punctual as always. Come in, come in. Did you bring the girl too? How delightful. Stay close, Dmitri murmured, his eyes scanning the area for hidden snipers. We entered the warehouse. The space was vast and empty, except for a chair in the center, and tied to it, pale but alive, was Katya. Katya! I lunged forward, but Dimitri's arm pulled me back. Wait, he warned. Alexei emerged from the shadows, flanked by a dozen men, all armed. He smiled, that same greasy smile from the gala. Touching, isn't it? Sisterly love. It's so rare these days. What do you want, Alexei? Dimitri's voice was deadly and calm. Straight to the point. I've always admired that about you. Alexei circled Katya like a shark. I want your territory, your import routes, your political connections, everything. What if I refuse? Then the girl dies. Then the beautiful sister here. His eyes moved to me. After I've had a little fun, of course. I felt Dimitri stiffen beside me, fury rolling from him in waves. You will not touch them, he said. each word etched in ice. No? And who's going to stop me? Alexei laughed. You're outnumbered, Dmitri. Your men out there are already surrounded. Tonight, the Constantine Empire ends, and a new one begins. Anna, Katya's weak voice cut through the tension. I'm so sorry. It's not your fault, I shouted back. Hold on tight, Sestrichka. We'll get you out of here. How confident. Alexei pulled out a gun, pressing it against Katya's temple. Last chance, Dmitri. Your choice. Your empire, or their lives. The silence stretched on, as tense as a thread about to snap. Then Dmitri did something unexpected. He laughed. Do you really think you surprised me, Alexei? That I didn't anticipate exactly this scenario? Alexei's confidence wavered. You're bluffing. Hello? Dmitri took out his phone, pressing a button. Ivan, report. Ivan's voice crackled through the loudspeaker. Secure position, sir. 27 hostiles neutralized. Awaiting your signal. Alexei's face paled. You see? Dmitri continued, his voice now smooth and lethal. While you were busy luring me into your little trap, my men were busy dismantling yours. The snipers you positioned on the rooftops? Eliminated. The backup team on the river? Captured. Your men in this warehouse? He looked around. They're all that's left of your operation. I still have the girl. Alexei pressed the gun harder against Katya's head, making her groan. And this, said Dmitri, drawing his own weapon in a movement so quick I almost didn't see it, is your fatal mistake. The gunshot echoed through the warehouse. Alexei fell, a perfect hole between his eyes, the gun falling lifelessly from his hand. Chaos erupted. Alexei's men drew their weapons, but Dmitri's men were already moving, emerging from hidden positions in the shadows. Gunfire rang out, echoing off the metal walls. Dmitri pushed me behind a concrete pillar. Stay here, but I couldn't stand still. Not with Katya still tied up, vulnerable, in the middle of the crossfire. Run. Everything happened in slow motion and hypersonic speed at the same time. Me running towards Katya, one of Alexei's men turning around, seeing me, raising his gun. Dmitri shouting my name. The crack of a gunshot. Pain exploded in my shoulder, spinning me around, sending me crashing to the ground. So Dmitri was there, standing over me, his body protecting me, his gun firing with deadly accuracy. The man who had shot me fell. Anastasia. Dmitri knelt down, his hands pressing against my shoulder, trying to staunch the bleeding. Look at me. Stay with me. Katya, I stammered, the pain making me see stars. Ivan, the girl, roared Dmitri. Through the fog of grief, I saw Ivan run to Katya, cutting her bonds, carrying her to safety. The shooting subsided, then stopped. Clear area, sir, someone reported. Ambulance, now! Dmitri's voice was breaking. Anastasia, stay awake. Look at me, that's an order. I forced my eyes open, focusing on his face. Even in pain, even in fear, the sight of him calmed me. Are you okay? I asked. He laughed, the sound coming out like a sob. You've been shot, and you're asking me if I'm okay? Someone has to worry about you. I love you. He pressed his lips to my forehead. I love you so much. Don't you dare leave me. Understand? Don't you dare. Not planning to go anywhere, I murmured, the darkness tugging at the edges of my consciousness. The last thing I heard was Dmitri's voice, hoarse with emotion, promising that everything would be all right. And I believed him. Chapter 9. Recovery. I woke up in a private hospital room, sunlight streaming through large windows. For a moment, I couldn't remember where I was or why. Then the pain in my shoulder throbbed, bringing flooding memories back. The warehouse, the gunshots, Dmitri protecting me. You're awake. The voice came from my left. I turned my head. Dmitri was sitting in a chair beside the bed, looking utterly wrecked. His eyes were red, his jaw covered in day's stubble. His suit was wrinkled, as if he hadn't slept or changed his clothes since. How long? I asked, my voice hoarse. 3 days. He moved to the edge of the bed, taking my hand with a gentleness that contrasted with his stern expression. You had surgery. The bullet pierced your shoulder cleanly, but there was muscle damage. The doctors say you'll make a full recovery, but it will take time. Katya? She's fine. Scared, but unharmed. She's downstairs receiving treatment. The best money can buy. A tired smile touched his lips. She's been demanding to see her every hour. Relief washed over me. And you? Are you hurt? A few scratches, nothing. Dmitri Mikhailovich Konstantin, are you lying to me? He actually laughed at that. You're the only person who would dare to call me that. His expression turned serious. I was shot in the side. A graze. It's already healed. Let me see. Anastasia, now. Sighing, he lifted his shirt. A white bandage covered his ribs on the left side, bloodstains running down them. A scratch, I repeated sarcastically. Compared to what could have been, it's nothing. His hand tightened on mine. You ran into the fire. For your sister. Despite everything I said about staying safe, you would have done the same. I know. That's why I can't be angry. That's why... He paused, swallowing hard. When I saw you fall, when I saw the blood, I thought I had lost you. And I realized that nothing, no empire, no power, no revenge, means anything without you. Tears burned in my eyes. Dmitri, marry me. The world stopped. What? Marry me, he repeated more firmly now. Not because you owe me anything, not out of obligation or contract, but because I love you, because you make me want to be better, because a life without you is not life. You are proposing to me in a hospital room. It's imperfectly perfect. Like us, he smiled. So, are you going to make me the happiest and most terrified man in Moscow? There were 1,000 reasons to say no, 1,000 ways this could go wrong. But when I looked into Dmitri's eyes, I saw only truth, love, promise. Yes, I whispered. Yes, I will marry you. He kissed me then, softly and reverently, as if I were something precious that could be broken. And in that kiss, I felt every promise that words could not express. Protection, partnership, eternal love. Epilogue. 6 months later, the Constantine mansion had been transformed. Where there had once been sterile coldness, now there was warmth. Photographs covered the walls. Dmitri and I at our small, intimate wedding. Just close family and trusted friends. Katya laughing, her health finally improving thanks to the experimental treatment that was working beyond expectations. Ivan smiling uncomfortably at the camera, something rare and precious. I was still working as Dmitri's assistant, but now the title was less important than the reality. I was his partner in everything. Legitimate businesses he was slowly building to replace the criminal operations, decisions about the future of his empire, plans to transform the Bratva into something his mother would be proud of. It wasn't easy. Change never was. There was resistance from older factions, threats from rivals who saw change as weakness. But together, we were stronger. You're thinking again, Dmitri said, his arms wrapping around my waist from behind as I stood on the balcony of our room, watching the sunset over Moscow. Someone has to do it, I joked, leaning against him. You're all action and no planning. That's a lie. I planned how to seduce you with meticulous detail. Oh, really? And how is that plan working? Exceptionally good. His lips brushed my neck. Considering you're using my last name and carrying my child, my hand instinctively moved to my still flat stomach. The positive test from that morning still seemed surreal. Are you happy? I asked softly. Happy doesn't even begin to describe it. He turned me to face him, his gray eyes shining with emotion. Terrified, yes. Worried about being a terrible father, absolutely. But happy? He placed his hand over mine, both resting on the spot where our baby was growing. Anastasia, you gave me something I thought I'd lost when I was 9 years old. You gave me a family. Tears filled my eyes. Happy tears this time. We're going to be great, I promised. We're going to mess things up sometimes, for sure. But we're going to love this baby fiercely, and each other, until death and beyond, he agreed. We stayed like that as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. 2 survivors who found each other under the most unlikely circumstances. A maid and a mafia boss. A woman who needed rescuing, and a man who needed redemption. Except that it ended. None of us needed rescuing. We simply needed each other. And together, we built something that no bullet, no rival, no darkness could destroy. Love. True, imperfect, fierce, and eternal. Who touched you? Dmitri had asked that night in the hospital when he found my wounds. And within hours, the whole city knew that I wasn't just his maid. I was his soulmate, his queen, the woman who transformed the czar of Moscow's underworld into a man who believed in futures, not just survival. And this was a story that Moscow would tell for generations.